All right, here's an example of a problem that you might see in a midterm. This is a more complicated version of probably of what I would give you, but I wanted for you to have an example of a problem with all bells and whistles, and then I'll customize it for the exam. So the problem is as follows. We have a CMO that is issued with 3 different tranches. We have tranche A, which consists of $40.5 million of principal and has a coupon rate of 8.25%. We have the B tranche, which will have a coupon rate of 9% and a principal of $22.5 million. And a Z tranche that will carry a coupon of 10% with a principal of $45 million. The mortgages backing the security issued are fixed rate mortgages at a mortgage rate of 10% with 15 years maturities and annual payments. The issue will be over collateralized by $4.5 million, and the issuer will receive cash flows only after all classes of investors have been completely repaid, which makes it a residual tranche. Assuming that there is a servicing fee of 0.4% and a 5% CPR prepayment every year, let's answer the following questions. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys how the payment gets disbursed and what happens in this type of problem. Okay, so we always start with the total cash flow. And we already know from our previous examples that consists of prepayment, scheduled principal, and scheduled interest. Now, these two together are the scheduled monthly payment that for a fixed rate mortgage that you calculate in your calculator. Now, prepayment and scheduled principal are the principal payments and the scheduled interest is the interest payment. Right, so the prepayment and the scheduled principal go towards repaying the principal, and the rest is on interest. So let's think about all these different tranches and what they get. So we have tranche A, tranche B, tranche Z, and residual. Right, so let's think about what they get towards principal and towards interest. So tranche A is the first priority in repaying its principal. So it will get all the principal, right? And I'm going to mark that you know what I mean here. So this will be all of the principal payments, right? And it would also get the interest on the Z tranche towards repayment of its principal. So plus interest minus servicing fee on the Z tranche, okay? The B tranche will get nothing in interest unless the A is already completely repaid, and tranche Z will also get nothing in principal. Sorry, I think I misspoke earlier. So tranche B gets nothing in principal unless A is completely repaid, and Z gets nothing in principal until A and B are completely repaid. Okay, and the residual again gets nothing in principal until A, B, and Z are completely repaid. So let's think about what each of the tranches get in interest. So this will be the total interest. So A will get its interest, and it will have to pay servicing fee. right? B will also get its interest, and it will also have to pay servicing fee. Z, however, does not get its interest because that was used for repaying the principal on A. So it does not get its interest at all, and then the residual is the remaining from total cash flow. So once we compute what's the total cash flow for this pool of mortgages and we compute all of the payments, the remaining gets received by the residual. All right, so let's dive into the problem. So first question is, what is the initial pool balance of the mortgages issued? So we know how much is issued on each tranche. So okay, so we can compute how much is the total pool balance. So here we have on tranche A, we have 40.5, I believe. 40.5, 22.5, 45. So 40.5 million plus 22.5 on B plus 45 million on Z. And then we also know that this pool is over collateralized by $4.5 million. So that is again the principal that the issuer put in on their own. So the total comes out to be $112 million and 500,000. So that is the answer for this question. What are the scheduled payments for to the SPV or the issuer in year one? So here the scheduled payment is the scheduled principal plus the scheduled interest. So there we just put in our regular formula. So payment where PV is equal to $500,000. The interest rate is going to be 10%. That's the interest rate on the mortgage. And there are 15 years with annual payments, so N is going to be 15. So the payment that I got is $14,790,799.90. That is the scheduled payment to the issuer. In year one, how much prepayment was received? So for the prepayment, we always multiply the pool balance times prepayment rate. We are given that the prepayment is 5% conditional prepayment rate. This is an annual problem, so we just take that as is, and the pool balance in the beginning is $112,500,000, and we multiply that by 5%. And the prepayment comes out to be $5,625,000. Okay, so the total of 14 and 5.625 is how much the issuer receives from the borrowers in year one. How much of that total cash flow goes towards interest? Well, that is just the interest is the interest rate times pool balance. And the interest rate was 10%. So it is 10% times $112 million and 500,000. Okay? So the interest is then $11,250,000. In year one, how much of the total cash flow to issuer goes to principal? Well, we know that the total is 14.79 plus 5.625, and then 11.25 went to interest, so the rest went to principal, right? So it will be 14,790,799.90 minus 11,250,000. This is a scheduled payment. Scheduled principal. Right? This is how we usually compute it. This is the scheduled payment, 14.79, and the 11.25 is the portion of it that is interest. So the difference is the scheduled principal. They also receive the prepayment, so we need to add that back. And prepayment is also a principal portion. So the total that I got here is 9,165,799.90. Okay, so this is the principal portion of the entire cash flow, and then the 11.25 is the interest portion of the entire cash flow. So let's now think about how the cash flows are dispersed and how that changes the balance on each of the tranches. So let's start with tranche Z. In the first year, what is the cash flow to tranche Z? So cash flow to Z, we know if we check back with that table, is going to be 0 for the principal and 0 for the interest. So actually the cash flow to Z is 0 unless A and B are fully repaid, which we will have to double check in the end, but we know that that is true at least in year one. Okay, so the cash flow is 0. In the first year, how much interest is accrued to Z? So remember that tranche Z does not get its interest right away, but of course it's still owed to the investors. So how does that work out? That interest gets tacked on to the principal in the following year. So instead of the principal being paid, the interest being paid off to the investors, it actually accrues on the principal for the following year. So how much interest is accrued to tranche Z? Well, it's the interest on Z minus the servicing fee on Z, right? So the interest rate on Z is what? Interest rate is 10% of $45 million. So the interest is 10% times $45 million, and the servicing fee was 0.4%. And that is also multiplied by the pool balance. Okay, so 10% of 45 is $4.5 million. And let me just get my cheat sheet right here. And the servicing fee is $180,000. So the total interest accrued on tranche Z is $4,320,000. All right. In the second year, what is the beginning balance on tranche Z? The beginning balance in tranche Z is going to be the previous balance plus the interest accrued. So it's going to be $45 million plus, let me do it the other way. So plus 4,320,000. And that is the beginning balance plus interest accrued. Oop. Okay, so that is going to be $49 million, 320,000. That's a starting balance on tranche Z in the following period. Moving on to tranche B. In the first year, what is the cash flow to tranche B? Remember that it's not getting any principal. So the cash flow to tranche B is just the interest on B minus servicing fee. On B, right? So the interest rate on B, remember, sorry guys, I have to scroll up, is 9%, and the beginning pool balance is $22.5 million, and the servicing fee is 0.4%. So the interest is going to be 9% times 22.5, and the servicing fee is 0.4% times 22.5 million. Right, so I got that to be 2,025,000 for the interest, and the servicing fee is $90,000. So then the total cash flow to tranche B is $1,935,000 and $0. All right, in the second year, what is the beginning balance on tranche B? The beginning balance on tranche B, let me just plug in my iPad. Sorry about that. The beginning balance on tranche B is going to be the same, right? Because nothing changed to the principal in tranche B. So the principal wasn't repaid and no interest accrued because the entire interest was paid out in the first year. So the beginning balance in tranche B is actually the same as the old balance, which is $22.5 million. Moving on to tranche A. In the first year, what is the cash flow to tranche A? So that, as we know, is the total, all of the principal, plus interest minus servicing fee on tranche Z, plus interest minus servicing fee on its own tranche, right? So A gets its own interest, which is interest here, and then it also gets the rest of the money towards repaying of its principal. So all of the principal payments go towards repaying the principal on A first, but also the interest minus servicing fee on the Z tranche goes towards repaying the principal on tranche A. So let's compute what that is. So we know that the total principal we have already computed in this question, so that will be $9 million and 165,799.90. the interest minus servicing fee on Z is whatever accrued, is basically the interest accrued on Z, which is 4,320,000. And then we need to compute the interest minus servicing fee on A. So the interest rate on A, we have to go back and see what it was. The coupon was 8.25 and the balance was $40.5 million. So it's 8.25% times $40.5 million. And it has to pay the servicing fee, which is 0.4% times $40.5 million. Okay, so what does that equal to? I got that this portion was 160,000, and the interest was, let's see, what did I get? And the interest was 3,341.2 and 250. Okay, so then if we add all these three terms together and subtract the servicing fee, we should get $16,665,000 and $49.90. Okay, does that make sense? 13 on average plus 3 more, that's 16 minus, yeah, so that's approximately that looks right. In the second year, what is the beginning balance on tranche A? So the beginning balance is going to be, the ending balance in period 1 or the beginning in the period 2 is going to be the beginning balance in year 1 minus all principal repaid. Right, so the beginning balance in year 1 was $40.5 million. And all the principal repaid is going to be the money that went towards principal, right? So this is this sum over here. So it's all principal, which is $9 million, 165, 799.90. And then what else went towards principal? The interest minus servicing fee of the Z bond, which is $4,320,000. Okay, so that is equal to $27,014,200.10. Right, so the balance on the tranche A actually went down by a very substantial amount in the first year. That's because the entire principal of all of the mortgages plus the interest accrued on the Z tranche was used to repay the principal only of the A tranche. So now we need to find out what are the earnings to issuer. So that's essentially the residual. The residual, right? So what is the cash flow to the residual? Where does that come from? So the first source of the cash flow in the residual is the extra interest. Right? So if we go back to the beginning of the problem, you see that the borrowers of these mortgages paid 10% in interest for their loans. However, each of these tranches received sometimes less than 10%. So A received 8.25 and then B received 9%. So there's going to be some extra interest remaining, and that's going to go towards the residual. In addition, once the A and B tranches are already and the Z are already paid out, then because there is some principal on the residual, so there's going to be some principal remaining, given the provided there's no default, that will also go towards the residual once the principal on A, B, and Z are completely repaid. But we're in year 1, so that's not really where that's not the source of the income for the residual quite yet. So extra interest and then extra principal once A, B, and Z are fully repaid. Right, so here we're going to get the extra interest. So in the first month, what is the cash flow to residual? So remember that there's a servicing fee in this example. So the servicing fee will have to be paid out to the servicers. So let's compute, so the cash flow to residual is going to be the total cash flow to security minus servicing fee that will be paid to the servicers minus cash flow to A minus cash flow to B minus cash flow to Z. Okay? So total cash flow to the security is going to be, we've computed that in the past, it's going to be the sum of these starred values, right? Is going to be the scheduled payment plus the prepayment. So it's 14.79 plus the prepayment. Plus the prepayment, which is $5,625,000. Now, from the entire pool of mortgages, there's going to have to be a servicing fee that it gets paid out. So the servicing fee is going to be 0.4% of the total pool balance, which was $112,500,000. And then we need to pay out the money to tranche A, B, and Z. So Z receives 0, we know. A receives 16,665,049.90. And then B receives, let's see what we computed for B. B receives $1,935,000. And Z received 0. So if we sum all that together, or subtract all of that together, sorry about that, we get $1,365,750. So that is how much the residual tranche is receiving in the first year. And I believe that's it for our problem.